Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 40. Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpita Urumana Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpito Urumana Kritam Anukritvataya Anukritavattya Unmada Andhaha Kritam Anukritavattya Unmadandhaha Kritam Anukritavattya Unmadandhaha Kritam Anukritavattya Unmadandhaha Prakritim Agan Kila Yasya Gopavadvaha Prakritim Agan Kila Yasya Gopavadvaha Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumanaha Kritam Anukritavattya Unmadandhaha Prakritim Agankila Yasya Gopavadvaha Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumanaha Kritam Anukritavattya Unmadandhaha Prakritim Agankila Yasya Gopavadvaha Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumanaha Kritam Anukritavattya Unmadandhaha Prakritim Agankila Yasya Gopavadvaha Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumanaha Kritam Anukritavattya Unmadandhaha Prakritim Aganakila Yasya Gopavadvaha Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumanaha Kritam Anukritavattya Unmadandhaha Prakritim Aganakila Yasya Gopavadvaha Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumanaha Kritam Anukritavatya Unmadandha Prakritim Aganakila Yasya Gopavadbhaha Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumanaha Kritam Anukritavatya Unmadandha Prakritim Agankila Yasya Gopavadbhaha Lalita Gati Vilasa Bhalguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumanaha Kritam Anukritavatya Unmadandha Prakritim Aganakila Yasya Gopavadbhaha. Synonyms: Lalita, attractive; Gati, movements; Vilasa, fascinating facts; Valguhasa, sweet smiling; Pranaya, loving; Nirikshana, looking upon; Kalpita, mentally; Urumana, highly glorified; Kritam Anukritavatyaha, in the act of copying the movements; Unmada Andhaha, gone mad in ecstasy; Prakritim, characteristics; Agan, underwent; Kila, certainly; Yasya, whose; Gopavadvaha, the cowherd damsels. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Rajadhama, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance. Translation with repetition: Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Rajadhama, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance. Purport: By intense ecstasy in loving service, the damsels of Rajabhumi attained qualitative oneness with the Lord by dancing with him on an equal level, embracing him in nuptial love, smiling at him in joke, and looking at him with a loving attitude. The relation of the Lord with Arjuna is undoubtedly praiseworthy for devotees like Bhishma Deva, but the relation of the gopis with the Lord is still more praiseworthy because of their still more purified loving service. By the grace of the Lord, Arjuna was fortunate enough to have the fraternal service of the Lord as chariot driver, but the Lord did not award Arjuna with equal strength. The gopis, however, practically became one with the Lord by attainment of equal footing with the Lord. Bhishma's aspiration to remember the gopis is a prayer to have their mercy also at the last stage of his life. The Lord is satisfied more when his pure devotees are glorified. And therefore, Bhishma Deva has not only glorified the acts of Arjuna, his immediate object of attraction, but has also remembered the gopis, who were endowed with unrivaled opportunities for rendering loving service to the Lord. The gopis' equality with the Lord should never be misunderstood to be like the Sayujya liberation of the impersonalist. The equality is one of perfect ecstasy, where the differential conception is completely eradicated for the interests of the lover and the beloved become identical. Thus ends a wonderful transcendental Bhakti Vedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So today's verse, the title of today's class is The Perfect Ecstasy. And the verse is talking about the concept of ecstasy. And we will see in detail what are the symptoms of ecstasy and what does this ecstasy mean. But before that, let's just look at this verse one more time. Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpitorumanaha Kritam Anukritavatya Unmadandhaha Prakritim Agankilayasya Gopavadvaha. So Gopavadvaha, the cowherd damsels, what are they doing? They are in a state of madness in ecstasy. Unmada andhaha. Unmada is extreme ecstasy. And andhaha, completely mad, gone mad in ecstasy. Mada itself means, mada is sometimes referred to, is translated as illusion or madness. And unmada is extreme madness. And unmada andhaha, completely mad in ecstasy. And in that state of consciousness, what they are doing, kritam anukritavatyaha. Kritam anukritavatyaha is in the act of copying the movements. So they are copying the movements of Krishna. And what kind of movements are they copying? These are Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa and Pranaya Nirikshana. So the attractive movements of Krishna, when gopis were present, when Krishna was present among the gopis, how he behaved with them, exchanging loving glances with them, and striking attractive poses, and his movements were so beautiful and attractive. So all his activities, pastimes, which they saw when he was physically present with them, these are not just emotionless activities of, let us say, a bird on the tree, which could also be looking very fascinating. Let us say somebody is imitating a peacock, which Krishna used to do. Krishna used to imitate peacocks, and he used to dance like a peacock. But this gopis is copying the movements of Krishna, which he is performing in loving mood. So he is looking upon them with love, and that mood they are trying to capture in ecstasy. And Bhishma Deva is saying, let my mind be fixed upon that Krishna whose movements were copied by the gopis. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Rajadhama, gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance. So there was this pastime where Krishna plays the flute at the dead of the night, and all the gopis, although they have their household duties, they're married, many of them, and then they leave their homes in the dead of the night, and they come to the forest where they hear Krishna's flute. And first of all, Krishna says, why have you come? Why have you come here? You should all go back home. You're all married. It is not correct for you to come here in the dead of the night. So they are very disappointed. The gopis say that, no, we have already given up our family relationships. We have come here after having given up the social norms. And now you're asking us to go back. It is not possible. So after some discussion, the Lord says, all right. And he agrees to spend some time with them. And he starts giving attention and starts spending time with the gopis. And the gopis are now, have not seen this before, have not experienced this before. This is the first time that is happening, and they are completely completely ecstatic. But in their bliss and happiness that Krishna is here and is spending time with me, Krishna observes that they have become slightly proud. And they're thinking, oh, I'm so special, Krishna is spending time with me. Because the way Krishna was spending time, that every gopi felt that Krishna was exclusively spending time with that specific gopi. They were not aware of how Krishna was similarly spending the time with every other gopi. So they felt, oh, I'm so special. Look at me. Krishna is attracted to me. And Krishna saw this, and just to increase their ecstasy, he became absent from in front of them. So the gopis could no longer see Krishna, and they were now searching, oh, what happened? Imagine suddenly Radha Damodara disappears. What will happen to us? So, and that is our contaminated state. In that contaminated state itself, we would be a little concerned. And now gopis were pure devotees, and suddenly Krishna has disappeared, and they were starting to go mad. They were searching for him everywhere. They started talking to the trees. And in Bhagavatam, there is a description of all the trees that they spoke to. Every tree, every plant, every creeper, different varieties. There is a mention of a mango tree. And there is also a mention of a mango creeper. Have you ever seen a mango creeper? I have not seen. But there is mention in Bhagavatam of a mango plant, which is more of a creeper, is what is mentioned, mango creeper. And just many, many plants and trees are mentioned, where they go and ask each one of them, have you seen Krishna? Have you seen Krishna? Have you seen Krishna? They follow the footsteps of Krishna on the soil. They can see there is footsteps. For some part, they see two sets of footsteps, and they start thinking that maybe Radharani has gone along with Krishna. So because Radharani is so dear to Krishna, she knows how perfectly to worship him, satisfy him. So maybe Krishna and Radharani have strolled off to some solitary place. Then they go forward, the steps are going, and suddenly the two set of steps, they become single set of steps. Then they're wondering, oh, maybe Krishna has carried Radharani on his shoulders. And maybe that is what is happening. And they start speculating like this. But Krishna is nowhere to be found. And they go mad in their ecstasy. And that is the context here. And that is the context on which, that is a scene on which Bhishma Deva is recollecting the exalted position of the gopis, and he is seeking to get the blessings of the gopis, as well as to please the Lord by glorifying the gopis. As it is mentioned in the purport, the Lord is more pleased when his devotees are glorified than when he is directly glorified. So in the previous verses, Bhishma Deva is glorifying Krishna as Partha Sarathi, where he's drawing the chariot, and Arjuna is seated in the back, and Krishna has the whip in his right hand, and in the previous verse before that, his body was covered with blood, and the face was covered with the dust, and the hair was scattered, and he was glorifying, Bhishma Deva was glorifying Krishna in the form of Partha Sarathi in the battlefield. And now he's glorifying Krishna as the object of attention and attraction for the gopis, and whose ecstasy was such that they went completely mad in his absence and started imitating his movements. So let us take a look at the description of the different moods of in which devotees approach the Lord, and what is the unique position of the gopis as seen and explained by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his instructions to Sanatana Goswami. So Thursday, March 13th, is also the appearance day of Lord Chaitanya, Gaura Purnima. Gaura Purnima Maha Mahotsav ki Jai. So let us see this pastime from the lens of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, we have heard that Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, who has descended to teach the world how to approach Krishna, how to love Krishna in the mood of the gopis. There are several reasons why the Lord appears. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata tadat abhyutthanam adharmasya tadhatmanam sujamyaham. So whenever and wherever there's decline of religious principles and predominant rise of irreligion, I appear. So that is, of course, the reason that is given by Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita. But there are also other confidential reasons. Krishna's appearance always accomplishes several goals at once. So there is the confidential goal, reason why Krishna appears as Lord Chaitanya is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where it says that Lord Chaitanya, Lord Krishna wanted to understand the unique love of gopis towards him. And he wanted to experience that. Why? What does these gopis find in me? What is it that is so unique about in me that the gopis are so mad after me? I can't understand this. Of course, Krishna understands everything. Krishna understands everything. And yet, these are the pastimes in the transcendental mellows. And Krishna wanted to experience that. And so he has appeared as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in his pastimes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he lives his life and shows us an example of what it means to be in the mood of the gopis. And through that, he also relishes the transcendental love that gopis had for Krishna. So, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was instructing Sanatana Goswami in the process of devotional service, he gradually explains what are the different stages of devotional service and how the ecstatic love of the gopis was the highest. So let us look at some of that. This is a quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 22, verse 104. Ebe sadhana bhakti lakshana suna sanatana, yaha haite pai Krishna prema mahadhana. So he is talking to Sanatana Goswami and he is saying that sadhana bhakti lakshana, these are the features of sadhana bhakti. Please hear from me, Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana. Yaha haite pai Krishna prema mahadhana. If somebody follows this process of sadhana bhakti, they can attain to Krishna prema, the treasure trove, that ultimate treasure of Krishna prema, which was exhibited by the gopis. People can access that. It is possible to reach that point. How? Through the process of sadhana bhakti. So he explains in detail what is this process of sadhana bhakti, and let us see that today. It is going to get a little bit technical, so please bear with me and try to follow. It's a little bit detailed, and there are some new terms. So many of you may have encountered them before, but some of you it may be new. My dear Sanatana, please now hear about the regulative principles for the execution of devotional service. By this process, one can attain the highest perfection of love of Godhead, which is the most desirable treasure. And then he says, Kriti sadhya bhaved sadhya bhava, bhava sa sadhanabhidha, nitya siddhasya bhavasya prakrityam hridi sadhyata. So a little intricate verse with some new terms, and let us see what this is. There is an introduction of a new term called Sadhya bhava. Sadhya bhava. So let us see what this is. Kriti sadhya, which is to be executed by the senses. Bhavet should be. Sadhya bhava, by which love of Godhead is acquired. Sa, that. Sadhana abhidha, called sadhana bhakti or devotional service in practice. Nitya siddhasya bhavasya prakrityam hridi sadhyata. My dear Sanatana, please now hear about the regulative principles. Regulative principles for execution of devotional service. By this process, one can attain the highest perfection of love of Godhead, which is most desirable. I think the translation is not correct in this. It is the previous verse. So he is defining what, please ignore the translation here, it's not correct. He is defining what is sadhana bhakti. So what is sadhana bhakti? Sadhana bhakti is a process that is executed through our senses, because we are all in this body, and in this body we are experiencing the world through our senses. Now, there are two kinds of living entities, Nitya Siddha and Nitya Baddha. Those who are eternally liberated and eternally conditioned. For the eternally conditioned souls, if they have to achieve pure transcendental love of Godhead, one has to progress on the path of developing that through the system of mind and body, because that's what we have been given. Conditioned souls are identifying with the body and mind. Since we are identifying with the body and mind, it is through that body and mind that we can advance. And that process is called sadhana bhakti. And I'll just read the purport here. This verse is to be found in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Because living entities are minute, atomic parts and parcels of the Lord, devotional service is already present within them in a dormant condition. Devotional service begins with Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. When a man is sleeping, he can be awakened by sound vibration. Therefore, every conditioned soul should be given the chance to hear the Hare Krishna mantra chanted by a pure Vaishnava. One who hears the Hare Krishna mantra thus vibrated is awakened to spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness. In this way, one's mind gradually becomes purified, as stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. When the mind is purified, the senses are also purified. Instead of using the senses for sense gratification, the awakened devotee employs the senses in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the process by which dormant love of Krishna is awakened. So, this is the beginning of instructions by Sanatana Goswami, where he's beginning to describe the process of sadhana bhakti, which begins with Shravanam and Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. And what is the importance of hearing and chanting? The importance is that in our conditioned state, our spiritual senses are asleep. Although love of Godhead is natural condition, natural state of every living entity, but this natural state is covered by the illusion, and therefore our original spiritual consciousness is asleep. And if we have to be awakened from that spiritual consciousness, then what is the process that can awaken us? Sound. Sound can awaken, because sound is very powerful. A person can, when he's sleeping, in the material sense, when we are simply sleeping, our body and mind are sleeping at night. Mind does never sleeps, only the body sleeps. How does one awaken that person? Sound, alarm. We all have different alarms, right? Different alarm sets at different times, every 5-minute interval in the morning to wake up everyone in the house except ourselves. So that alarm which is set wakes us up from our sleep. So sound is what is necessary for waking us up. And when you're in spiritual sleep, then you need a spiritual sound. So that spiritual sound is Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This is the process by which dormant love of Krishna is awakened. Then he goes on to say, Shravanadi Kriya Tara Swarupa Lakshana Tatastha Lakshane Upajaya Premadhana. The spiritual activities, chanting, remembering, and so forth, are the natural characteristics of devotional service. The marginal characteristic is that it awakens pure love of Krishna. So these are now we are going a little bit technical here. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu giving instructions to Sanatana Goswami, and he is very closely, analytically, in a way, not true, it's all transcendental science, so it's not confused with the analytical Sankhya philosophy at all, by no means. But if you see, he is minutely describing the devotional science, the process, the science of devotional service. And he's saying, just as you would, in our common parlance, we often think that, when I go to study science in my school, there are such minute properties that are described. For example, you take a cross-section of a tissue, plant tissue. So you take a plant tissue, you cut it in cross-section, observe it under the microscope, and then you'll say, this is, what are the tissues? Parenchyma, sclerenchyma, collenchyma, xylem, and phloem. I remember this, 9th grade. 5 plant tissues are there. There are 5 categories of plant tissues. And so these tissues can be observed, and then you further go inside the tissue, there will be some other cells or something inside that, right? And then you wonder, there are so many detailed varieties of the universe that are described by modern science. Why is it that in devotional science, we are only describing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare? How do you dissect that? How do you put that under microscope? Well, actually, it has been done in great detail. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has done it. And when I was looking at that and preparing for this today, I could not even have a very, very low resolution microscope I had to keep. If you keep high resolution microscope, our ability to grasp is not that much. So here he's saying that these spiritual activities of hearing and chanting, they have 2 levels of effect. The first, their characteristics are classified into natural and marginal. And the marginal characteristic is that it awakens pure love of Krishna. So this marginal characteristic applies to the marginal living entity. So this marginal living entity is Tathastha Shakti, or the living entity who has a propensity to sometimes come under the influence of the spiritual energy of the Lord, internal energy of the Lord, and sometimes come under the influence of the external energy of the Lord. So this marginal living entity, when the special effect of spiritual activity acts on the marginal side of the living entity, then it has the effect of awakening the spiritual consciousness. But there is also a fully spiritual aspect of this activity, which is called the natural characteristic of devotional service, because it acts for anybody, including those who are fully liberated and who are pure devotees, Nitya Siddhas. Even for a person who's a Nitya Siddha, hearing and chanting is the devotional service. It is not that for them it's a different devotional service. But since they are already awakened, for them it is a natural way to render devotional service. Whereas for us who are in the conditional state, for us it has the effect of awakening us. So that's why it is classified. It has got 2 characteristics. One is a natural characteristic and the other is a marginal characteristic. Then he goes on to say, Nitya Siddha Krishna Pema Sadhya Kabunai Shravanadi Suddha Chitte Karay Uday. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema, the pure love of Krishna, is eternally established in the hearts of living entities. It is eternally established. It is not something to be gained from another source. It is not that we are inducting the Krishna Prema from somewhere else into us. We are not inducting. Krishna Prema is a natural state for all of us. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, this love naturally awakens. So it is not unnatural to us. We are not going to seek adopting some ism, external ism that we don't have, and through a process of intellectual understanding, we are trying to adopt a system. Sometimes people ask this question, those who have been practicing Krishna consciousness for some time, how did you come to Krishna consciousness? And what are the other systems that you evaluated before you decided that this is the right system for me? Sometimes that question is asked, and it comes quite often because people are curious. What did you look at? Why not some other system? And there are many other systems that exist. But you see, when a person answers that question or tries to answer that question, sometimes you get tied in knots. And the reason is that it is not actually an intellectual process by which a person takes up to Krishna consciousness. Although there may be some intelligence, application of intelligence involved, but application of intelligence and application of the mind can also take you in many different directions for a person with polluted conditioned state of mind and intelligence, which is all of us. So if a person is trying to use their mind and intelligence, yes, it is possible and we do use that, but that is not the primary way in which we take to Krishna consciousness. We take to Krishna consciousness because our natural state is revived and it just feels right. It just feels right because that is our natural state. I'm sure that many of us have experienced this for a person who has, every one of us has a unique nature, an inborn nature, an inborn talent, inborn affinity for something, inclination towards a certain kind of activity. But it takes time for us to discover that, to understand that that is my nature, because it appears like I cannot differentiate, I cannot understand, especially in the formative years when you're going through middle school or high school or even college. It is not easy to identify what is my inclination in my material nature, whatever nature I have been given, inborn nature, what is my inclination, what is my proclivity. But as a person comes across a type of activity where it just feels right that yes, this is the activity that I can do. For some people, it may be a type of maybe art. When they perform some artistic activity, they feel at home. They feel, yes, this is what I was born to do. This is my natural state. Some people, when they are in music, they feel that yes, this is the right activity for me. Some people, when they are solving some complex problem, arithmetic or calculus or something like that, they feel, okay, this is life for me. For some people, gardening. For some people, something else. It may be being in the nature, just being outdoors. Outdoors. Some people like the outdoors. Not everyone likes outdoors. Some people are completely out of it when they're outdoors. They want to just go back home and sit on the chair. But then some people love the outdoors. They want to go outside and walk by the mountains and hills, and they want to climb up, etc. So everybody has a certain inclination. And when a person realizes that yes, this is my inclination, and you perform an activity in line with that inclination, you immediately feel at home. Nobody needs to explain to you why it is that you are doing that, because this is what my nature is. Similarly, when a person is even slightest of awakening a person receives through the spiritual process beginning with Shravanam Kirtanam, you immediately realize that this is the right activity for me. This is my natural state. And this can happen to every living entity. That is the difference between the material inclination, which is different for each one of us and given to us based on our past karma and the state of mind when we exited our last body, versus this spiritual awakening, which is applicable to every living entity, regardless of what type of body they have. It could be a human body or even a dog body, even animal body. It is possible for the soul to feel awakening and realize that this is my natural state. So when the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, this love naturally awakens. I'll go a little faster now. Etara sadhana bhakti, duitara prakara, eka vaidhi bhakti, raga anuga bhakti, ara. So now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving two further divisions of sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti, what we saw, there were two characteristics of sadhana bhakti. What were they? Natural and marginal. There were characteristics. Now there are two categories, two types of sadhana bhakti. There are two processes of practical devotional service. One is regulative devotional service and the other is spontaneous devotional service. Vaidhi bhakti and raganuga bhakti. Now note that both are called sadhana bhakti and both are meant for conditioned souls to achieve the state of pure love of God. But one of them is practiced when a person comes to a certain stage and the other is practiced when the person is not at that stage. So there is a process for those who have already attained to a certain stage where Raganuga Bhakti can be practiced, Whereas for the others who do not have spontaneous devotional service, have not developed that point, for them the regulative devotional service applies. And what is the regulative devotional service called? Vaidhi Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti. Ragahina jana bhaje, shastrera ajnaya, Vaidhi Bhakti balitare, sarva shastra gaya. Those who have not attained the platform of spontaneous attachment in devotional service render devotional service under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master according to the regulative principles mentioned in the revealed scriptures. According to the revealed scriptures, this kind of devotional service is called Vaidhi Bhakti. In the beginning, one has to hear from a bona fide spiritual master. This is favorable for advancing in devotional service. According to this process, one hears, chants, remembers, and engages in deity worship, acting under the directions of the spiritual master. These are the essential primary activities of devotional service. Devotional service must not be executed for some material purpose. One should not even have a desire to merge into absolute truth. One has to render such service out of love only, ahai tuki apratihata. Devotional service must be without ulterior motives. Then material conditions cannot check it. Gradually, one can arise to the platform of spontaneous loving service. A child is sent to school by force to receive an education. How many of you loved going to school? Raise your hands. 3, 4, 5. But for the vast majority of the residents of Shrewsbury, I don't think that is the case. A child is sent to school by force to receive an education. But when he gets a little taste for education at an advanced age, he automatically participates and becomes a learned scholar. One cannot force a person to become a scholar, but sometimes force is used in the beginning. A child is forced to go to school and read and write according to the instructions of his teachers. That is Vaidhi Bhakti versus, as opposed to, what's the second one? Raga Anuga Bhakti. Such is the difference between Vaidhi Bhakti and spontaneous Bhakti. Dormant love for Krishna exists in everyone's heart, and it simply has to be awakened by regulative process of devotional service. One has to learn to use a typewriter by following the regulative principles of the typing book. One has to place his fingers on the keys in such a way and practice. But when one becomes adept, he can type swiftly and correctly without even looking at the keys. Similarly, one has to follow the rules and regulations of devotional service as they are set down by the spiritual master. Then one can come to the point of spontaneous loving service. This love is already there within the heart of everyone. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema. Spontaneous service is not artificial. One simply has to come to that platform by rendering devotional service according to the regulative principles. Thus, one has to practice hearing and chanting and follow the other regulative principles by washing the temple, cleansing oneself, rising early in the morning, attending Mangalarti, and so on. If one does not come to the platform of spontaneous service in the beginning, he must adopt regulative service according to the instructions of the spiritual master. This regulative service is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes on. Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtana, Bhagavata Shravana, Mathura Vasa, Sri Murtira Shraddhaya Sevana. These are the 5 most important limbs of devotional service. Now he's further describing Vaidhi Bhakti. So in the beginning we saw there is Sadhana Bhakti. It has got 2 characteristics and it has got 2 processes. There's a process of Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. In Vaidhi Bhakti, in executing that, there are 5 most important limbs. Actually, many more limbs have been described, but these are the 5 most important limbs of Vaidhi Bhakti. What are they? Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtana, Bhagavata Shravana, Mathura Vasa, Sri Murtira Shraddhaya Sevana. One should associate with the devotees. That is Sadhu Sangha. Chant the holy name of the Lord. That is Nama Kirtana. Hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavata Shravana. Reside at Mathura and worship the deity with faith and veneration. Sri Murtira Shraddhaya Sevana. Now he describes Raganuga Bhakti. Actually, the process, the bhakti itself is called Ragatmika Bhakti, and the followers are called Raganugas. The original inhabitants of Vrindavana are attached to Krishna spontaneously in devotional service. Nothing can compare to such spontaneous devotional service, which is called Ragatmika Bhakti. When a devotee follows in the footsteps of the devotees of Vrindavana, his devotional service is called Raganuga Bhakti. So there is a Ragatmika Bhakti, which is executed by the residents of Vrindavana, which includes the cowherd boys, the cowherd girls, the young boys, the friends of Krishna, and the elderly gopis, as well as the young, all of them, everyone, including cows and the deer and the peacocks, they are all considered as inhabitants of Vrindavana. And they are on the platform of Ragatmika Bhakti. Now that is not a platform available to us. We have to approach that. So if a person who is already has developed spontaneous love or spontaneous attachment, but is not on the level of inhabitants of Vrindavana, then the process they follow is called Raganuga Bhakti. But to even become eligible to follow this process is a very high qualification, which we do not have, and therefore Prabhupada has given us the Vaidhi Bhakti process, not the Raganuga Bhakti process. So Raganuga Bhakti process is a process which starts from spontaneous attachments. You wake up in the morning, you're already in the mood of love of Krishna. Oh, I have to cook for Krishna today. We don't wake up in that mood. And for a person, even when he's sleeping, Raganuga Bhakti person, he's thinking of Krishna. So that stage we are not there. But even a person who comes to that stage, it's still called sadhana bhakti. They still have to progress many levels. When one becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to one's natural inclination to love Him and is fully absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord, that state is called transcendental attachment, and devotional service according to that attachment is called Ragatmika, or spontaneous devotional service. And this verse, I would like you all to repeat after me. Chiradadattam nijagupta vittam swaprema namamritam iti udaraha apamaram yo vitatara gaura Krishno janebhyastamaham prapadhye Chiradadattam nijagupta vittam saprema namamritam ityudaraha apamaram yo vitatara gaura Krishno janebhyastamaham prapadhye. This is a verse composed by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who is glorifying Lord Gaurasundara or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You might have heard of several names of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Can you enumerate some of the names? I just gave one, Gaurasundara. What are the other names of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Nimai Pandit, okay? Gaura, okay? Sachinandana, nice. Gaurahari, very nice. Any other name? This verse is introducing a new name. The name is Gaura Krishna. Gaura Krishna. Can you all say loud? Gaura Krishna. The most munificent Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Gaura Krishna, distributed to everyone, even the lowest of men, his own confidential treasury in the form of the nectar of love of himself and the holy name. This was never given to the people at any time before. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So here, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is addressing the Supreme Lord known as Gaura Krishna. Gaura Krishna, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is the most munificent Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is known as Gaura Krishna because he is distributing to everyone love for himself, which is never available before. It is not easy. If you see when the Lord appeared as himself in his original form as Krishna during the Krishna Lila pastimes, there were those who already knew who Krishna was and those who did not know. And of those who knew who Krishna was, they were executing pure devotional service. And those who did not know Krishna's position, they were not able to. But it was not a situation where the mass of people became suddenly attracted to Krishna and they became his pure devotees. It was not so. Those who are already his devotees, they appeared in Vrindavan at the time and they participated in Krishna Leela. And they derived transcendental joy, and Krishna also enjoyed that. But when he came as Gaura Krishna, he has given love for Krishna to everybody without any differentiation. Everybody received highest love, which is love for himself. So, then I'm going to read some of the translations for a few verses. Please stay with me. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued. Now, hear, O Sanatana, about the result of devotional service, which is love of Godhead, life's ultimate goal. One who hears this description will be enlightened in the transcendental mellows of devotional service. Remember, we are all waiting to see when the ecstasy will come. In this word, there were 2 mentions of the word ecstasy, and we are yet to see that. When affection for Krishna becomes deeper, one attains love of Godhead in devotional service. Such a position is called sthayi bhava, permanent enjoyment of the mellows of devotional service to Krishna. When devotional service is executed on transcendental platform of pure goodness, it is like the ray of sun ray of love for Krishna. At such a time, devotional service causes the heart to be softened by various tastes, and one is thus then situated in bhava or emotion. Bhava, emotion, has 2 different symptoms. Okay, so before we read this, there is a technical term introduced called sthayi bhava. So these are, we have heard of 5 transcendental mellows in pure devotional service. What are they? Shanta rasa, Sakhya rasa, Dasya rasa first, then Sakhya rasa, then Vatsalya rasa, and Madhurya rasa. So when these mellows, these transcendental mellows, they develop in a person, initially they are transient. They come and go. But when they reach to a point where they become permanently fixed, that is called sthayi bhava. Fixed transcendental mellows. That's called sthayi bhava. Okay, now bhava, such bhava, has 2 different symptoms, constitutional and marginal. Previously we saw also these 2 characteristics of Vaidhi Bhakti. What were they? Natural and marginal. So same meaning here, but the word used is slightly different. Constitutional and marginal. When that bhava softens the heart completely and becomes endowed with a great feeling of possessiveness in relation to the Lord and becomes very much condensed and intensified, it is called prema, love of Godhead, by learned scholars. So from bhava, you are now progressing to prema. So when that bhava softens the hearts completely, becomes endowed with the great feeling of possessiveness in relation to the Lord and becomes very much condensed and intensified, it's called prema. So if you see, actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a special munificent incarnation who can melt heart of stone. There is a verse in the song, Parama Karuna, where one verse says, Pashupakhi jhure Pashana vidare sunri jana guna gatha. So Pashupakhi jhure, that is he can make the animals dance. Pashu, Pakshi, jhure. So all the birds and the animals are dancing. He can make them dance. And Pashana vidare, he can melt heart of stone. So our heart is compared to stone-like heart. And even though Krishna has such love for us, and he personally appears as Lord Chaitanya and distributes love for himself so freely, but we do not take it up. So that's called heart of stone. But he can even melt that heart of stone. So when that heart of stone begins to melt and it softens, that heart becomes, that bhava or that emotion becomes endowed with great feeling of possessiveness in relation to the Lord and becomes very much condensed and intensified. It's called prema or love of God. When one develops an unflinching sense of ownership or possessiveness in relation to Lord Vishnu, or in other words, when one thinks Vishnu and no one else to be the only object of love, such awakening is called bhakti or devotion by exalted persons like Bhishma, Prahalada, Uddhava and Narada. So this is coming from Narada Pancharatra, where definition of bhakti has been given. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives this process which we have all heard of before. Adau Shraddha Tatha Sadhu Sangha Atha Bhajana Kriya Tato Anartha Nivritti Syat. The fundamental process of devotional service, the Vaidhi Bhakti, starting with Shraddha, little bit of faith, and then Sadhu Sangha, devotee association, Bhajana Kriya, taking up to the process of devotional service through hearing and chanting. Anartha Nivritti, when one follows that, one's unwanted activities come to a full stop. And then one reaches a point of fixed determination in devotional service called Nishtha. Then Ruchi, Ashakti, Tato Bhavas. Then Ruchi, Ashakti, Bhava, then Krishna Prema develops. This is a process of devotional service that has been given. When the seed of ecstatic emotion of Krishna fructifies, the following 9 symptoms manifest in one's behavior. Forgiveness, concern that time should not be wasted, detachment, absence of false prestige, hope, eagerness, a taste for chanting the holy name of the Lord, attachment to the descriptions of transcendental qualities of the Lord, and affection for those places where the Lord resides, that is, a temple or a holy place like Vrindavana. These are all called anubhava, or subordinate signs of ecstatic emotion. The first time we are hearing the word ecstatic emotion coming. So after having crossed all the stages, even now, it is not yet at the level of gopis. We are still coming to Anubhava, Bhava, then Anubhava, subordinate signs of ecstatic emotions. They are visible in a person in whose heart the seed of love of God has begun to fructify. It's a very early stage still. At this stage of Bhava, a devotee has awakened the tendency to chant and describe the transcendental qualities of the Lord. He has attachment for this process. Now, this process is described similar to the process of sugar candy extraction. So just as you have sugarcane seed, and there is a image there of sugarcane seed on the top left, and from that what you get? Sugarcane plant. From sugarcane plant, molasses are extracted. I didn't put the photo, it would have been just a gunk. From molasses, you get sugar. From sugar, you can make sugar candy. And from sugar candy, you can make further sweets made of sugar candy. And that specific sweet that is mentioned in a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita is rock candy. Anyone tasted rock candy? Rock candy you had? Okay. So I think everybody has had. They just didn't know it was called rock candy. Maybe it's called different names when you're looking for it. So that's a photo you can see of rock candy. There are many sweets like that of different tastes. There are different kinds of essences that are added to basically sugar candy to make it even more flavorful. So just as you have a sugarcane seed, looking at it conceptually, sugarcane seed has all the qualities of a sugarcane and the sugar and the candy, but it is in the seed form. But when it grows and becomes a plant, that is the next stage of development. Then it grows and then you extract molasses from it. Then you extract sugar from it. Then you extract sugar candy from it. Then you make some sweet like rock candy out of it. So these are different stages of development of Krishna Prema. When the most, and I'll soon stop, I know we are a little bit over time. Even when the most learned man cannot understand the words, activities, and symptoms of a person situated in love of Godhead. So a person who has reached the sugar candy or the rock candy stage, you try to understand what he's doing, you cannot understand. It's not possible. Even the most learned person cannot understand what they are doing, why they are doing. When a person is actually advanced and takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord, who is very dear to him, he is agitated and loudly chants the holy name. He also laughs, cries, becomes agitated and chants just like a madman, not caring for outsiders. Love of Godhead increases and is manifested as affection, counter love, attachment, sub-attachment, ecstasy, and sublime ecstasy. So you're going further and further in devotional service. According to the candidate possessing these transcendental qualities of sneha, mana, and so on, there are 5 transcendental mellows: neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental love, and conjugal love. So now comes to the point of conjugal love. When permanent ecstasies, neutrality, servitorship, so on, are mixed with other ingredients, devotional service in love of Godhead is transformed and becomes composed of the transcendental mellows. Permanent ecstasy, so we have already seen permanent ecstasy, sthai bhava, it's called sthai bhava. This is further, bhava is transforming further into prema. And in that, there is permanent ecstasy. Permanent ecstasy becomes more and more relishable transcendental mellow through the mixture of special ecstasy, subordinate ecstasy, natural ecstasy, and transitory ecstasy. So these are further classifications of ecstasy: vibhava, anubhava, sattvika, vyabhichari. These are the classifications of sthai bhava. And each of this is further classified and subclassified. I think we do not have the intellectual ability or the language to understand these different ecstatic symptoms. But I want to just communicate that these have been described in great detail by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami. And it is not that when trying to explain the process of Krishna Prema as evidenced or as shown, displayed by the gopis in Vrindavan, immediately one starts with a description of rasa dance and the description of the amorous activities between Krishna and the gopis. There is a lot of science behind this. And there is in-depth analysis of that science that has been explained personally by Krishna himself as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami. And any aspirant who tries to understand, tries to follow in the footsteps of our previous acharyas, we should try to understand this systematically, just as we are trying to understand physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. We spend a lot of our intellectual energy trying to understand the material science. There is a lot of detail in spiritual science too. And anyone who has got a taste for problem solving or studying academics, we should try to spend time trying to understand these details, writing it down, drawing flow charts, and analyzing. It is not that immediately by analyzing we'll come to that stage. But this is a matter of study. It's just like when you study a cross-section of plant tissue, it is not that you become some plant expert, right? It's just a beginning stage. It's a way to train our mind how to study. Similarly, although we are not at the stage of even nishtha, forget the higher stages of ruchi and asakti and bhava and prema. But it is important for us to study the literature that has been given to us by our acharya. They have given it to us so that we don't think that there is no engagement of our intellect in this process. No. Our intellect can be completely engaged in Krishna consciousness. So, with that, I will stop here and see if you have any questions or comments. Hare Krishna. Is the same what? Facility. The same facility is available there is the question. The body-mind system facility is available everywhere. But the environment is not very conducive in heavenly planets. The question is, in the heavenly planets, is it available? Is the environment conducive? No. Heavenly planets is the place where you go to enjoy the results of your pious activities. The very fact that you're in the heavenly planets, it shows that you have the mentality to enjoy. If a person is quitting his body, yam yam vapi sparan bhavam, jayantyante kalevaram. So even though he may be in the mode of goodness, but the mode of goodness is binding. A person is content in acquiring knowledge, or in the knowledge that I am not the body, the knowledge that whatever comes to me, I am content with that. This mode of goodness can be binding, and therefore a person becomes contented, and they want to continue that. So then they are given a birth in heavenly planets, where they continue to enjoy that mode of goodness. And at that point, there is no facility for following the process of sadhana bhakti as is available for us here on earth. In fact, if they have to, but they can travel. Like right now, let's say you wanted to visit a holy dham. This temple is holy dham, but if you want to go outside, you would take a plane and you would go to Sri Dham Vrindavan, right? You'll go to Sri Dham Mayapur. You can take a flight. The facility is available to you to go, travel there. But it's not, this is not Sri Dham Vrindavan in the sense of Shrewsbury but this temple is. But outside the temple, it is just Shrewsbury, just Massachusetts, right? Similarly, in the heavenly planets, they have the ability to travel to Earth whenever they want. But as such, there are no temples there. There are no temples. And you can see that the process of Vaidhi Bhakti, it is start emphasizing Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnuho Smaranam. This may be possible in heavenly planets, but Archanam Vandanam is not possible. There is no temple. So that's why when we do Arati, Devatas come here. The residents of the heavenly planets, those who are interested in progressing on the path of devotional service, actually travel to earth and attend Arati in our temple, like this in various Krishna temples. And that's why when the Arati is offered to the Lord and the spiritual master, then the Arati is offered then to all the Devatas who are assembled. Then it is given to us who are in the temple hall. So actually, after the Arati, the Devatas then go back. So they come to attend the Arati. And where there is Hare Krishna Mahamantra being chanted, similarly Narada Muni appears, according to Prabhupada. So although there is ability for the residents of heavenly planets to travel to places where such facility for advancing in devotional service is there, but that mindset may not be there for them to travel, right? Because that's not necessarily something that they are looking for. They are looking to enjoy in heavenly planet. But here we have Prabhupada, pure devotee has come, and this is where we have the opportunity to practice devotional service on Bhuloka. This is Karma Bhumi. It's called Karma Bhumi, whereas the heavenly planets are not Karma Bhumi. There you go to enjoy the results or suffer the results. So you can go to hellish planets or the heavenly planets to enjoy or suffer according to your past karma. But the karma itself happens here. So here is where you have the opportunity to perform Naishkarmya, or activities without result, without a fruitive result. We'll stop here. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jagadguru Shila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.